Hi, Josh.
Hello, Linda. Hello, everybody. And Aaron, you made it. I saw on the roster it said you weren't coming.
Oh, nope, I'm here.
Awesome.
I guess you get a free pass, Aaron, if you want to get up and turn it off.
Yeah. Wait, I didn't get that memo.
Live. We're live.
Hey, we are live. I am pulling up our itinerary here. So, opening exercises. Welcome to the May 27th Downtown Advisory Board meeting. I think we'll first start with taking roll call. So, Aaron Turbining.
Here.
Linda Nishioka.
Present.
Brad Compton.
Here.
Tyson Giza.
Here.
Josh is here. Vincenzo Maduri. Not present. Scott McLeod.
Here.
Jordan Truitt.
Here.
And last but not least, Charles Weathers.
I am here.
Charles is here. All right. Awesome. Well, before I ask for approval of the agenda, I would like to add one additional item, which is the UGM saffron topic. Cherie, do we need to approve that to add it to the agenda?
Why don't you? Yeah.
Okay.
I move that we add the UGM Saffron site topic to the agenda.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Thank you,
Linda.
Linda. So we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor of adding UGM saffron to the approval of agenda for today, say aye.
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 All those not in favor, say nay. Okay, motion carries. That will be added to our agenda. Now, Cherie, do we need to approve that updated agenda? Or is that approved?
It's approved. We'll go with it.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
Okay, and then next, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes from the April 22nd meeting, unless there's any questions. And Vincenzo is here.
Yay.
I'm here.
All right.
I'll
move
move
to-
to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Tyson moves, Scott second, I believe. So all those in favor of approving the minutes from April 22nd, say aye.
You aye? Aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, say nay. Motion carries. Okay. Well, we can move on to our action items.
Hey,
So,
hello, everybody. So when we were doing our budget discussions, one of you asked if we could do a communication to the council. And so what I provided to you in your packet was I gave you a copy of the memo that you had done in 2019. I thought that might be interesting for new board members to see what the topics were that the DAB wanted to share when we submitted that budget. And then I prepared, and again, I prepare it, but I'm open to any edits or changes that you have. I just wanted to give you something to start with based on what I've heard from you, but just know, because it's a draft, whatever changes you want to make, since it's coming from you, I would be happy to make those changes. So basically, again, what I gave you is a draft of a communication that you could include with the budget that goes before council on the parking fund. So what do you all think?
Well, my favorite is your second to last paragraph.
I was very bold, wasn't I, Scott?
That was
We've
good. I
circled
liked
around
it.
this for a long time. I know.
That's how it should be.
yeah, I think the time has come.
So it's going to be hard no matter when.
Yeah, change is hard, but this is getting things current and frankly, carbon copying what other downtowns do everywhere.
Well,
Well,
we
and
have, oh, sorry.
there is no way that you can maintain a quality maintenance and replacement program without funding. And when you delay it, all it does is cost you more. So revenue's got to increase, and parking meters are the only way to get there.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that this does is we have new counselors, including Ward 1, which is the counselor for downtown. And the budget that they get, I don't know if they would have the 200 and the 400 information, because it's good. Obviously what's in front of them shows it reconciled. So the other thing I thought was important was for them to know the challenge that was before you this year. Different than it's ever been before, because I don't think they would capture that in what they're going to be getting. I just don't. So I threw that in there. But if it's too bold, I can soften it.
It's
I
not
think
too
so.
bold. It's not. It's very
No.
necessary.
And ultimately, Cherie, how this is figured out is going to fall back to city staff, correct?
Yes, I mean, what would happen is that if we could finally get actually it could happen two ways. They could direct staff to explore the implementation of a paid parking system, or they could ask the Downtown Advisory Board. It's always been, you need to be asked to do it before you do it. They don't want us doing it without them directing us to do it, but it could come to the advisory board versus staff. I mean, I'm here for you, but it could come to you, not necessarily just to staff.
Is it something that we could do a subcommittee on, or when the time comes, or like a work session to just brainstorm the ideas surrounding this change or how we might get there?
Well, I think that that's exactly what we would do. If it came to the board, then I think we would talk through the best options to have the highest probability of being successful. I think we would, learn from other communities that have gone from free to paid. I know when they had the parking task force back in 2013, and remember, one of the recommendations from the parking task force was implementation of paid parking in downtown, and council approved it. It was approved. We had a lot of data ready to go to implement it. But then, an initiative petition came out, a petition to not have paid parking, and council chose to accept that. And then that included no paid parking, so it trumped what they had approved before. So yes, I think we would look at some place like Tacoma, and they had free parking forever, and the way that they were able to change it was actually their city manager holding hands with the chamber and a 36 board group was the only way they were able to get enough people to buy in and understand it and educate. In fact, the chamber was the group that had ambassadors on the street corners, showing people, how to use a pay station, working with the businesses. It really wasn't the government, it was the chamber and the businesses with the chamber that carried that message forward. So yes, I think if they came back to you, we would look at and present back to them options for how you might move something like that forward.
What is Sheree, you said that there was a 36-person board that they had to
Yeah.
deal with?
Yes, can you imagine
So-
managing that?
No.
I can't either.
I don't even want to think about it. But but is it something that, is it a stronger case if we come to them from the beginning saying we have a partnership with the chamber and we have an idea of how we can implement this, rather than we would like to implement this and then hopefully you'll get back to us so that we can actually try? Does that make sense?
Well, again, if they directed staff to do it, we would look at the best approach to having it be successful. If they came to the advisory board, Josh is right, we would probably create a subcommittee of the board, and then we would look at the best way to get back. We would want to lay out what our plan would be. And we
Right.
would want, all along, we would want to make sure that the council was supportive, because to make this happen, you have to have as many stakeholders on board with you as you can have, which is why I think Tacoma did it the way they did it. They started out with 36 people that they were going to educate, who supported putting paid parking in their downtown that had always been free. The chamber, they were holding hands with the chamber, and that's how they were able to do it. I have no
Right.
idea. I have no idea if that would work here, but just intuitively, the more stakeholders that you have with you, the better chance you're going to have of delivering that message.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to, it was just simply, does it make more sense to come at it directly with some ideas, or do we wait until they approve it and then create ideas? I just want to, is it more impactful, I guess?
I don't think they would just approve it. I think that they would ask somebody to bring back information on it.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
what you brought back, they would approve. However,
Okay.
in this environment that we're in, with the challenges with this budget, maybe for once the politics goes out of it and they just say, do it.
Mhm.
And they're not going to
Okay.
worry about if business A calls and says, we don't want a paid parking
Right,
system.
right.
They all join hands and say, this is what we want, do it.
Okay. Thank you.
I wish I could read minds and predict the future. I wouldn't be here if I could do that, but it would be helpful in these kind of situations. But good question, Vincenzo.
Yeah, definitely a good question, and I'm getting excited about the idea of brainstorming parking. And I know we'll eventually get there, because you know what it means for everything, because everyone does benefit. Like Scott mentioned, maintenance costs, because you can see downtown, there's it's seen better days, and I know we have the streetscape plan coming in the imminent future, and that will be fully built out. But this has to be coinciding directly with that. What types of pay stations and education and how we get there, of course it'll be political. Every decision is. So, Sheree, are you looking for an approval of this memo to send to the mayor and city council?
Yes, because it's your memo.
Just confirming. Guys, are we ready to vote on this, or is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I move that we accept Sheree's well-written letter representing DAB's commitment to paid parking downtown.
I'll second it.
Linda seconds. To rephrase, all those in favor of submitting DAB's memo to mayor and city council to proceed with paid parking, all those in favor say aye.
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 And those not say nay. Motion carried. Okay. Now, action items, and this is where I think we can talk about UGM Saffron. Is that right, Sheree?
Yes, under info, we certainly can.
Okay. Well, who
So-
would like to
So
take
why don't we let Rebecca talk about that memo she gave you on the strategic project grant? And then B, I'll do with the UGM. How's
Okay,
that sound?
sure. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay, great. So the strategic project grant, we did the memo and to increase funds as requested. That went to the agency board. Gosh, what was it, Sheree? 2 weeks ago now? Not last Monday, the Monday before.
Right.
And that was approved. So we have additional funding in the strategic project grant, which is great because I believe we have 4 applications that are kind of dabbling and getting their ducks in a row in order to utilize that grant. So it's pretty simple. I mean, besides the fact that we're adding to that, we've seen a lot of interest in the grant, a lot of continued interest. Besides that, I'm happy to answer any other questions you all might have.
So Rebecca, some people are really familiar with, we have the capital improvement grant, which that particular grant, you can have up to 300,000, and it's to do permanent improvements to a building, and it has objectives that need to be met, but it's been very successful. We then turned around and created the strategic project grant that Rebecca's talking about, which had a very single purpose to fund items at 100% of the cost to help with security, safety, and crime prevention. So we've put a lot of funds out for exterior security cameras. We've done trash enclosures. We've done gates to help reduce crime getting into where trash receptacles are. We've done lighting. What else? Those are the key things.
Key things, yeah. There's
Some
been
fencing, some fencing.
Good. Yeah.
So again, it's very different than the capital grant because the capital grant, we can put a lot more money towards a lot more things. It's broader. The strategic grant, but you also have to have skin in the game from the applicant side. And this one, the maximum you can have is 30,000, and we pay 100% of those costs, just to give you a sense of the difference. And then just because we'll be coming back fairly soon with, we're working on guidelines or criteria for another grant that we want to create that deals with helping a business address capital improvements because of impacts from COVID. The difference is that, and I got permission from Kristen yesterday, I really don't want it to have a bureaucratic name. I'm hoping that Rebecca and I can come up with, we're open grant, welcome back grant. I don't care, something that doesn't continue. I don't want COVID in it, I can tell you that. So just know that we'll be bringing to you another grant program specific to meeting the goals of helping with those impacts. So that will be in front of you
At the next
fairly
meeting.
soon. Any questions for Rebecca or me?
So in the second paragraph, the SVG program supports the goals of addressing homelessness within the RDURA. Is that the primary goal of these? Because it says utilized by property owners for safety and security projects for their building and or property. Is it a reaction to the homeless situation? Is that what we're talking about?
So the strategic grant has been around for 2 or 3 years. And
Right.
yes, we wanted it to be separate from the capital grant because a lot of properties have maximized the capital grant that they could have in a 5-year period of time. And this was one that addressed things that that people didn't usually include in, or they may not. Basically, people won't do these things, Vincenzo. I mean, we really wanted to come up with the program because most people aren't going to do a trash enclosure. most people aren't going to do new lighting on the outside of their building to help with security. We wanted a tool to incent those types of improvements that help everybody. So
Great.
it was just different. We knew in general, people won't pay for those improvements, which is why we said, we'll pay 100% of it. We really want you to do this. I don't want to see people diving in your dumpsters. You know, let's try to have it be a win-win for all of downtown with this. It's
A lot
really, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it spurred a lot too with all my time in the alleys with trash in the beginning. It's all been a culmination of everything. But when 120 commercial, where Masonry Grill is, we had been trying to work with that. And Scott, you know this, we've been working with this alley for a long time on cleaning it up and streamlining all of the trash receptacles and that sort of thing. We knew that we would need to have some sort of an enclosure that would be more substantial. But who is going to pay for that? Who in their right mind would be like, oh yeah, $50,000, I'll go ahead and pay for that out of my pocket. But that beautification of these alleys, and then it's kind of morphed into so much more from that. But I know Charles has taken advantage of the strategic project grant at 440. So 17 projects have been funded through this grant so far.
Great, thank you.
Anything else on that one?
Good work, Rebecca.
Well, we may see more and more demand if we get an increase in homeless in downtown for it also. So if that's the case, then every time we fund this with more money, we take it away from the regular capital grant because it always has a large amount of money in it. So we transfer it from capital into strategic. So we'll see if we get a lot more interest in that grant program. So, okay, so UGM Saffron. So I sent all of you what came out in the paper. Surprise, surprise. Couple of things. One, the declaration, the emergency declaration to allow camping in the parks was expiring June 1st. And the second thing that was in the articles I gave you was that there was talk about keeping the UGM shelter as a shelter to help address, obviously, people leaving the parks and needing a place to be, especially when there's, a push on council for answering the question, what's your plan? What are you doing? At the last meeting, I had Gretchen come and I tried to queue up some questions specific to that, but she wasn't able to answer them in the board meeting, but then I saw it in the paper. So I wanted you to have it. So as you know, we've been working on the priorities for what we would like to see be redeveloped in the UGM Saffron site. You guys have given me direction. I showed you what would be in a RFP. We were thinking maybe it might change to an RFQ. And again, Aaron went over at the last meeting the difference between the two. We put money in our budget for next year for demolition to take down those buildings so that we could move forward with redevelopment. And, my update to you today is I don't know if a final decision's been made, but I would think based on it's already in the paper and the pressure council's under to have more space for the homeless, we won't be moving forward with demolition, at least through the winter on the UGM site. Now, it could be that we take the Saffron sites down, they're not used for the same purpose, which would be nice if we could do that. But certainly, you know, if something happens, they'll have to take a look at fire. We'll have to take a look again at that building and all the safety issues. And then, of course, somebody would have to be selected to operate it, because that is not something that the city would do. They would have to hire somebody to operate a shelter. But anyway, my goal is to always be as honest, you know, with you as I can be, and to give you everything that I know is going on. I didn't get a chance today, but on Monday, City Council talked about the emergency declaration being expiring, because I know people were concerned because, you know, without a plan, it's hard to think that you could undo something that you've had in place for a while. So I will send you out this. In fact, if you're a chamber member, you probably got it. They did a good job of recapping it. But basically, let's see what it says. It says, City Council vote ultimately directs city staff to begin moving the unsheltered population out of Salem Parks beginning June 1st. The difference between what I thought was going to happen and what this says is it says gradual approach. Don't exactly know what that means, but it says the city will work with community service providers and the police to begin the process of cleaning up our parks and informing the unsheltered population that camping in Salem Parks is no longer a permitted use. There was no specific date in time for which individuals are expected to be moved out of parks, but City Council noted this work is to be completed within a couple months. Part of the push for a gradual approach is thought to protect downtown businesses from an overnight migration of unsheltered individuals moving into the corridor, which was a previous hub for large numbers of unsheltered individuals seeking to be in close proximity to social service organizations. Okay, city staff is expected to report back frequently with updates to the chamber.
So what was the plan? The plan was to do this at some parks for a time, and then they were like, and then we'll end it and we'll see what happens. Like, what? I am very, I guess, flabbergasted about it. I don't understand how they can say that people can sleep in the parks and then go, no, you can't, and we don't know what we're going to do now. Is that what's going on?
Originally, the park, they were permitted to camp in the parks because of COVID. It gave them the opportunity to have space. So that's the declaration that was sent out, because it wasn't permitted before, but they declared it an emergency and permitted camping in the parks, those specific parks. That was what it was. But now that the pandemic is improving and a lot of complaints have come in, they're now wanting to not renew the emergency declaration. That's the way I understand it.
Okay.
We have two separate things we're talking about. We're talking about the emergency declaration ending, and then we're talking about UGM Saffron potentially taking a 180 direction.
Yeah, and I understand that. I just really wanted to understand. I think Linda explained it. I understand now, I guess. So.
Well, I'm sure everyone has other comments as well. I've got a ton, but
Well, there was another piece in this that said that the use of the word gradual to vacate campers was due to the 2009 9th District Court decision in the Martin versus Boise, and I think everybody's heard this reference case, which made moving of unsheltered population by law enforcement illegal, as it is not a crime to be homeless. The city attorney shared a legal differentiation in the city staff report, which stated, it is likely that even if Salem had a variety of shelter options available, some individuals would have court justifications for not using those options. The gradual option means transitioning unsheltered populations who wish to receive services into the proper programs and housing options, while those who wish to remain unsheltered are no longer permitted to set up overnight. I'll send this out to everybody. But yes, Vincenzo and Josh, you're right. We have two things. We have the potential for not moving forward with our redevelopment of the UGM Saffron sites, but it's tied to, unfortunately, the number of homeless individuals that need a place. And so if you already have some place, there's going to be a desire to keep it that way. At least in the right now, as they're trying to find other things that can provide housing options.
Cherie, is the decision on what kind of RFP or RFQ, has that decision been delayed as they consider using the property for housing people who are struggling with homelessness? Or is that decision moving forward? Do you know?
I think my sense is 90% RFQs preferred.
Okay, and do you know if there's a date when that's supposed to come out? I think
again, because obviously the paper put something out, there hasn't been any discussion publicly. Again, I guess, that would be something that may be of interest in you who have seen the article and who know that that might be something that's going to happen. I think that that would be an appropriate question to ask, or at least even give a suggestion, is that if that happens, it should happen with the defined date for when it's over. I think that that's a very reasonable request. So if it's going to continue as a shelter, part of that decision needs to be, when will it no longer be a shelter, so that we can move forward with the redevelopment. Is that it? That's kind of a different.
Yeah, that's
way to
part of
answer
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there should, if there's there needs to be some sort of like you said, dates or deadlines for when things are going to move forward. Otherwise, it seems like it's kind of our plan is to not have any plan.
That's the plan.
Yeah, I'm with Aaron. If you leave it open-ended, there be no function or result in the grand scheme of the plan. It's troubling for me to hear that this, and I don't want to get into a philosophical argument, but we all have our purview as board members here on DAB. Mine's real estate. And I know what it would mean to redevelop that site. And I'm not saying there's another avenue to achieve both goals, especially if there's a time and place where that use that they're considering would end. But if it continues forward, this other suggested use, my fear is that there would be a continuing use. I would hate to derail this RFP. There's been so much work and energy and even the surrounding properties around this for the future of downtown revitalization. We've got several empty buildings, and that's a problem for any city. So a redevelopment of this scale, I mean, you're talking potentially over $100 million investment just on this site alone, depending on how vertical it goes, depending on what is proposed. It's a catalyst type effect for other surrounding properties. So I'm not saying that, in my sole humble opinion, that this would derail an additional other couple $100 million of investment in associated tax revenue, which obviously is what fuels our city from a property tax standpoint. But it's troubling to know that this wasn't disclosed or talked about sooner, especially with our purview as DAB members and DAB as a board, because we've been working towards this. I mean, Linda and Tyson with their subcommittee, us appropriating funds for demolition. It's unsettling. Those are my thoughts.
It is unsettling. I agree with you. And blight is definitely still present in downtown Salem. I think that Aaron and Cherie have great points. If we can have an end date and not necessarily too much time, because the longer it is, the more likely it remains.
Not sure exactly where this fits, but it sounds like it's a foregone conclusion that the homeless population will increase downtown, whether it's gradual or immediate. And even if there is an end date to the old UGM being used again and then no longer, unless there is a alternative, I feel that the population will disperse from that shelter, but still remain in the vicinity. So what can we do to request, I guess, additional services for the public's enjoyment of downtown during this time? I know we have strategic projects grant, and that's amazing for property, but for overall, I guess, safety or I don't know, whatever better word than enjoyment is there anything that we can recommend be provided for that? And the reason I bring it up, and even the reason that I sound a bit shaky saying it, is that I was at Marco's on Friday, and there was obviously a homeless individual out front who was upset with some folks. I saw him there. I went inside, and within a few minutes, he walked in and, within 10 seconds, engaged with the customer in line and started choking him. And I hadn't witnessed that in Salem. I fear that that will increase, and that's something I'd love to see addressed. I know it's a humongous question, a very difficult topic, but it was very poignant that it happened just a few days ago.
Well, that's real testimony. I think it's logical in assuming that there will be an increase in homelessness, especially with the end of the camping. It would also seem logical that there would need to be an increased public safety presence or other type of capacity downtown. Cherie, has any of that been talked about?
Some of you know me well enough to know this is a very hard time for me, very hard discussion. I'm so sorry, Charles. It's not uncommon that I see somebody go up to a tree and just poop. And Linda, I don't know if you heard, but there was, I don't know how many police cars in front of the Coase building this week because somebody, a homeless individual, was just standing there sobbing and would not stop sobbing very loudly forever, it seemed like. So, we have this challenge because downtown, the people in Salem are so gracious and so giving, but at the same time, there are certain behaviors that are hard to support, and windows get broke and people get, threatened. It's just so hard because not all are like that, but some are. And how do you manage those? What I would like to do, it's kind of the next thing on the agenda, because I've been putting a lot of thought into this, as far as kind of some topics for board meetings. I think we touched briefly on, we don't know, I don't know. I've never met in person the new Ward 1 counselor. We invite her to a DAB meeting. You guys tell her what our role is and what's important to you. We invite Jimmy Jones from Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action and he talks to us and shares with us, Charles, of what they're doing because they run Arches. Maybe we, ask the police to come and talk to us because again, they've had real challenges with how they can enforce things because the jails won't take, people in. I think part of what always makes us better is to learn from all this. We had the chamber come before. Do we want to have the chamber come back now and talk to us about, how they're trying to help? Maybe, we build a list of topics around that piece too. And at the same time, you're sharing and letting, people know. I think it goes back to though, when you say those things to me, Charles, it makes me just want to encourage you to turn around and ask the questions. What's the plan for when, what will you do if we see more of what we've already seen that have impacted us negatively? Because I can tell you, there are more people in most of the buildings downtown's entranceways, side entrances, sleeping. And it's interesting because that's not usually how it's been. So I think that people that are coming out of the camps are used to being more alone. So they're finding one-off places, not with a group, because there's more now in the parkades, alone, but more in different locations, same in buildings in downtown. I see them now in places I've never seen them before. Not a mass of people, but eventually, and there's usually messes associated with each of that. So the question about if we have additional cleaning needs, how do we get them? If we need additional security, how do we get those? Because we may need them, especially if it's not illegal to stand for a long period of time or sit for a long period of time, which can be frightening to visitors to downtown, because people don't move and they're, they have some mental illness and it frightens you because you're not used to it. I think those are good questions. I'm going to bring you up to date on a couple things because again, it's been a couple hard weeks for me. So when I go to do the budget, I outreach to different vendors to see if they're going to have increases in their cost. So in January, I outreach to Garden that provides the cleaning services on the sidewalks. It's a nice partnership in that people with mental and physical disabilities have an opportunity to earn a wage, and we get the cleaning benefits. So last week, out of the clear blue sky, I get a contract or a request to amend our contract by 45%.
Whoa.
So
Whoa.
it would go from, we pay $69,000 to $100,000.
Oh, wow.
So, okay, that is not what we talked about at all. That's in addition to, I've had to double the size of the dumpsters and get an additional dumpster out back to hold the garbage in because it's increased so much.
Did they have a reason for the increase? Did they have an explanation for why the increase? Sheree?
Well, I'm sure it's because of the challenges that they have. I don't want to go into it. I had a phone call with them yesterday because of a whole bunch of reasons. One, when I work with somebody for multiple years, I don't particularly like being blindsided when I didn't get any response in January. And that's just, not appropriate in my opinion. And yes, I'm asking, there's reasonableness a reasonable increase. I think we all would have been okay with that. Of course, if you haven't changed your dollar amount for a couple of years, 45% is not reasonable to me. And I think because the city, we're required to use qualified rehabilitation facilities, which like DePaul and Garton is. For certain services, we have to outreach to them first. And maybe there's some thought that because of that, you could make it whatever. I don't know. But basically, I had a meeting with him yesterday, and I expect he'll be coming back with some options because I don't have that in our budget. Again, we put security. You know, council gave us some money to do security in the parking structures. The security provider has not performed to my expectations, so we canceled that. So now I'm in the process of going out to bid and getting another security. I think the lesson learned for us on that was we really need somebody dedicated, especially at Marion, because typically security providers, they have multiple clients that they're serving at one time. And we really need one, and we need somebody dedicated because things happen as soon as they leave and some of what we were hoping to achieve. So I'm looking at all the data I've collected from the current company working and trying to focus down exactly the time of day, the days of the week, when we could use and in what parkades, because they're not all the same. Pringle and Liberty do not have anywhere near the incidences as Chemeketa and Marion being the number one.
So can we ask the agency board to add a budget line item for a poop control department?
Okay, Linda, you're making me feel bad because I try to teach you. Can urban renewal money be used for maintenance and operations?
No, I know,
no.
but can we ask for some other source of income that can help that? Poop control, we need poop control department.
Well, we have been talking about safety, police, security, and cleaning, and those are all, I guess, reinforce the idea of going to the paid parking because we do need funds to cover that.
Yeah, exactly.
And if the city council and mayor are not focused on public health and safety, then they're not looking in the right direction.
Again, I think, you know.
And as Downtown Advisory Board, we are here to help try to keep downtown vital and vibrant and businesses going and it to be a pleasant place. And so, yes, public health and safety, Scott, are a big part of that. If it's not safe and you don't feel like your health is being protected, then no one will want to come.
Sheree, when you said about this idea of, connecting with, like what we did with, chamber and connecting with the police and all this kind of stuff, is it I don't want to be pessimistic, but I think I'm going to sound like it, but is it fruitless to do that? Because we can't make decisions. We can't decide things. We can't change laws or change policies. So it's almost, that's this whole thing that we just keep going in these circles of how do we help? How do we change whatever we can change, but we really can't. And so not that, I am all about collaboration. I think it's important. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't look at it as collaboration as much as exchange of information and education.
Okay.
I think everyone's better if they have some exposure or opportunity to understand another person's point of view. or
Yes.
the walk in their shoes.
Yes.
And so it goes both ways. They need to understand you and your business and what you are experiencing, because they may not know. And
Okay.
it would be nice to hear from them what they're doing, what they're, like Jimmy Jones, what services do they provide?
Mm-hmm.
I just think knowing more helps inform what you need to do in your role. It will,
Okay.
when you talk about, wanting to have more safety and security and cleanliness, if we had more information, we may be able to be more specific in what we think somebody should be thinking about versus,
Okay.
we need safety. Well, okay, is that security? Is it something else? I mean,
Okay.
it's like identifying the problem without a solution. And you're right, we don't get to have we're not in the position to approve something. But I do think that as a board, you can have opinions and try to help, especially your counselor that's new for downtown. She doesn't know us unless you guys know her. I have never met her. I think that she would be, she's already indicated a willingness to come to one of our meetings. And I think it's just to let her know who we are and what our goals are and what we've been working on, and how can she help us do that. And then we have these challenges that we're going to need her to help us with too. We're going to need money from someplace because we're going to need more cleaning. I mean, we're not even asking for what Josh is thinking about, where's our hanging flower baskets? Where's the other things that make downtown? We're not even going there. We're just asking for, can we keep it clean and safe-ish, whatever that is. And yeah, Vincenzo, I count on you because you are the one who likes relationships and sees the value in it. You've always been very good at wanting partnerships where you can. And I feel really bad that you feel discouraged. And
I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. It's just these constant conversations without any kind of solution. It just, I don't know. It just, it starts to kind of weigh on you a little bit, but I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're saying and I completely understand. And yes, I do think it's very important to know how the other half lives and everything. So I think it's would behoove us for sure.
Well, and just know that if I can, I try to push things too. So if somebody says it's going to cost me more than 70,000, then I'm going to do exactly what Linda's suggesting. I'm going to go and see what I can get for 70,000. I mean, maybe there's a better way through another city staff person dealing with poop and needles. I mean, I will investigate every possible, because I was in 4 meetings in 1 week, all on poop and needles. And I can't tell you how hard those meetings are because there's just stuff that falls out of the cracks. It's like there's all these departments, but nobody's on call to go scoop the poop when it's on a tree. But we need somebody to go and scoop it because Garton doesn't do that. They don't have water. They don't have the training to do that because it can become like a biohazard or who knows what. But yeah, to have 4 meetings on that topic, just know that's how critical people are in trying to figure out how we can deal with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to say, based on Charles's experience that he had recently, the thing that, we're talking about homeless and the potential increase when they're moving from the park. Well, the hope is that they're going to be having more shelters, more beds available. And for those that choose to go there, that's great. But there's still a lot due to mental illness that will not accept that. And they're going to be the ones that are still lingering about and potentially hazardous to our safety and well-being, as Charles experienced. And so then we get to the point where, okay, now we have to have police involved, and then it's an issue of more, because of their acting out behavior, that they can then be arrested. Unfortunately, right now, nobody can be held long. But, so it's just an ongoing problem with different situations. So we're going to hopefully resolve some of the homeless finding them shelters, but we're still going to have safety issues. So we're going to have to figure out if the police have to change some of their regulations, or if there can be more of a support for those that are in a mental crisis condition. So anyway, this is, as we all know, it's not easy. It's going to be so many steps, but we have to figure out ways to help manage it for those that want to be visiting or working or having a business downtown. That's important. So, does anybody else have any comments?
Well, I'm slightly ignorant. I mean, I've lived here my whole life, but I don't drive around too much apparently. Are there shelters elsewhere in Salem?
So, Cherie, you might talk about this, but in the paper, the Salem Reporter's been talking about, is Gretchen with us today?
No.
Okay, so there's a recent, looks like an acquisition of a motel that will be used for a shelter. So I did write to the city council when they had their meeting, their workshop meeting on the 17th, about before they change the declaration, they need to have a plan, have a plan. Don't just change this rule and then not have any plans for sheltering or management. And so they are working on plans, but unfortunately it's going to take time. That's the biggest thing. And my other point to them, and it's not news to them, is that we should stop having a congregation of downtown. Spread the wealth, spread the availability. And I think that Aaron is going to definitely agree with me on this. More smaller managed shelters throughout the area instead of just large shelters downtown. So that would be nice, but if that's going to be possible? It's going to be funding, and I'm sure Cherie can fill in how many other problems there exist with that.
Well,
I didn't answer your question, Charles, but
Charles, Gretchen talked to it last time. I mean, the city's been looking everywhere for anything, and NIMBYism comes into play, not in my backyard, and zoning, and who knows what, because she's looking at, is there a location where people that are living out of their cars could be safely? There's a lot of, well, actually, we don't have a lot in Salem coming from Portland, but there are nonprofits who provide housing for people coming out of the penal system. There are housing for women of, domestic violence. There is housing, transitional housing, where, you come off the street and you're there a short period of time and then you move on. And then there's just shelter like what UGM provides. And there isn't hundreds of those units. There just isn't. And again, the city's doing, these small pallet homes, but you never want to put something like that with too many in it in any one location. That's when you start having problems. So they're looking at a lot of different things. It's not that easy to come up with the money or the locations of which to have that shelter available, or even a location for camping that's not in a park that the public wants to use for the intended purpose. So yeah, no answer, sorry. But I want you guys to pretend like I'm up at the whiteboard and give me any topics that you would like to talk about.
With the city council?
No, just it doesn't have to be. Yeah, it does, it just, if there's something of interest that you think that the board should be talking about when we're not having to talk, budget time, is there anything, I mean, in the past, we've spent some time talking about the parking structures and we've already queued up money to explore. Is there anything we can do physically to that building to make them safer, get rid of glass and put something else, chain off areas that are hidey holes? I mean, we already have that queued up in our budget next year. It's just, I want to make sure that I am serving you in the best way possible and hitting those things that you want me to. And I don't have to fill up my whiteboard today. If you want to come back after thinking about that, I'm fine with that too.
Well, if I'm, what I'd like to do is at some point, let's recommend that you, and if we need to vote on it, we can do that. Just to let you know, Josh had to leave, so I'll try to manage the meeting the best I can. If we want to have the council from Ward 1 be invited to come to the next meeting, I'm assuming we need to vote on that.
Nope. I
Oh,
just need to know what you want on your list and I'll make that happen for you.
okay.
What is the list like? I guess I don't know if this is the right term, but like, what are the stakeholders of the downtown advisory? Like, what are the constituent organizations? Like chamber, obviously our Ward 1 counselor. What are I mean, is it important to have a consistent conversation with the people that we need to have a consistent conversation with? So it's not like this one-off, what should we talk about topics, but it's like, we know 12 months of the year, each month, this is who we're checking in, this is who we're talking with, this is what we're making sure is still moving and going forward. Does that make sense? So it's not just this one-off thing, but it's
Yep.
something that we can kind of
Yeah.
make
I think that's a critical part of it. And you get to make that decision who you want to come back and on what frequency. Like Linda's question, is Gretchen on this meeting? No. If you want Gretchen to, come and give updates on what she's doing to address city homelessness, then I will just get her, coming every other month, or getting something, if there's anything in writing that she's posting, I'll make sure that you get it. But yeah, that's what we're talking about. It doesn't have to be a topic that like that. It can be anything that is relevant to Riverfront versus, I mean,
right.
I've had years where somebody says, how many, what's been our increase in, the property values in Riverfront, since it was created. And our annual plan, our annual report speaks to that. There's things, who knows, how many, Rebecca just looked at how many properties within Riverfront are tax exempt,
Oh,
versus paying taxes. I mean, it can be whatever is of interest to you that you think would be helpful in informing recommendations to the agency board.
Yes, maybe, and I completely understand that, and I think it's exciting that we get to do that. I think what I was more asking is, I don't know necessarily what kind of things we'd like to know or hear about, and so is it possible to, even just for the start of creating a list of all the kinds of like things you just talked about, companies we've already had come in, you know what I mean? So it's something we can kind of look at and go, oh, this would be really good to start talking about. But it's just kind of like a list that we can always have, or we can always look back on of. Does that make sense? I don't know.
it seems like what you're trying to do is establish an ongoing relationship with certain groups or city committees that would have more information that could educate us as
Yes, exactly. And having just a just very basic for me of like having a list of what they are. Do you know
what they are,
what
what
they
they
do,
do, and
and
how
how
we can
they
we can
connect?
work together with them or
Yeah.
hear what they're
Well,
doing.
I mean, one that's been a tradition, I guess, in the past is that projects that we give to are, I mean, I say we, that the URA supports, that we get an update on those at some sort of interval. So
You do, yep.
those are usually pretty fun, kind of a positive thing to see, you know, the positive impact of the URA dollars being spent. So I know in the past that's been like a physical tour, and maybe with vaccines and everything, maybe we can make that happen again. If not, we can at least hear from some folks. I totally agree with everything said about having Counselor Stapleton here. I think it would be great to have FaceTime with her and just, yeah, put a face to our recommendations, and for her just to meet all of us and hear about things that are important to us. I think it'd be really good. And Arches, of course, and then UGM. I mean, those are two that, I mean, we talk about homelessness, I think, every meeting, and those are two agencies that are really close to that, and they're two agencies that we've supported more than any private business. They've both received millions of dollars, so I think it's kind of like our due diligence to hear how that money is, you know, benefiting our downtown as it's intended to. And yeah, I mean, I know UGM isn't open yet, but I would love to hear from them, you know, a month after they're open. I'd love to tour the facility. I think it'd be great if our group were invited to tour. And then I'd love to hear from them, you know, a month or two after they're open, to kind of hear how it's going and kind of talk about the impacts of that. Again, you know, very large investment from URA funds.
Well said, Aaron, and I agree. So it sounds like we'd want to see Gretchen again. Potentially, I would even like, you know, Jimmy Jones is always so positive, but it'd be nice to hear from him again on with these changes that are taking place. I think not only Stapleton, I would like to see if we could have a meeting with the city manager. I think that's a voice that, yeah, you know, he's not elected. I think that that would be a very helpful one too. And if we needed to have that happen at the same time as Stapleton, that would be okay. But it'd be kind of nice to have them separated. It does stretch things out if we do that. But anyway, those would be people I would love to see. And Mr. Paris can kind of give us an idea, you know, sort of what the city is looking at, not, you know, just kind of ahead with homelessness and safety and security and health issues. Maybe even the police again.
Okay. So on my list, I have Stapleton, Jimmy Jones, UGM, police, Gretchen, city manager. What about a reconnect with the chamber?
Yes.
Project updates.
Because they just don't have enough on their books, do they?
Anything else?
Sherry, would it be useful to maybe invite Eunice back in the fall to discuss the zoning and North Downtown and how all of that's playing out possibly?
Yes.
Yeah, once they, you know, she's exhausted from all the public meetings, and the climate action group, I think that the goal is both groups are trying to get their consultants to button up whatever comes out of all their outreach and their analysis to go to council at the same time or similar times in the fall. So yes, when all that gets, you know, they finally have what's come out of all these meetings, that would make sense to do that. Thank you.
I also just want to chime in if that's okay. I was chatting with OEDA, the Oregon Economic Development Association, if any of you aren't familiar with OEDA, and they have a TIF committee, an urban renewal tax increment financing. Those are interchangeable terminology. And one of the comments was, you know, people wanting a refresher on how urban renewal and how tax increment financing works. And I think that's in your board packet and when you start all of that, but I just wanted to let you all know, and I haven't let Cherie know yet, but they do have fun little video tutorials and fun little infographics on how urban renewal works in Oregon and how does TIF funding work. So if any of you ever wanted a recap of that or an update on that, I mean, I don't know how often you've had it, but just wanted to offer that up as well.
Is
That's
that kind of what we did, Cherie, that year where we kind of we asked people from the community to come in if they wanted to learn about? Okay.
That's exactly what you did.
So this is kind of just a streamlined way of not recreating the wheel, and just we can utilize that information. Is that right, Rebecca and Cherie?
Yeah, I just wanted that to me. I just wanted, it doesn't even have to be something that is talked about at a DAB meeting. It could even just be an email that I sent out. But I know some people, A, you forget how it works, and B, some of you are new. And sometimes you just need a really, what is the elevator speech, quick version on how urban renewal is funded, how our projects are funded, and what we can do with our money and that sort of thing. So just wanted to offer that up. I know everyone's expertise is different in this group.
No,
So.
I think that's very important, because that's, you know, what we that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that, I mean, we all need to know so that we can pass that on to the community. But if there's a way of even putting that kind of stuff online for people to look at, to really know, I think that's really important. So that'd be great if we could put it online or do it in a meeting or whatever floats your boat.
So Rebecca, is it like the little stick figure cartoony type things? Is that what they have available?
Yeah, they have a couple of those, and
Yeah,
they have.
I think that would be good, Vincenzo, because everybody has tried to come up with things that are more interesting or different than a bureaucratic approach. I've seen some of those little stick figure cartoony type things, and yeah, I think that's something that Rebecca can just send to you, and you can look at it on your own time. Just a refresher. I think those are fun. I've seen those. I like those. It's just a different way of learning something. But yeah, that we can always do that. And yes, we did do the presentation when we had our public meeting. And I guess that's something, again, you know, Vincenzo and Aaron, well, Aaron, we're losing Aaron at the end of the year, but which we're going to be so sad. Do you want to have another meeting where you invite people in? Because remember, both of you remember why we did that? What was the genesis for why we did that meeting? Who told you to do the meeting and for what reason? Vincenzo, this is a test.
I was like,
Wow.
didn't we just kind of come up with it?
No, you did not come up with it. You came up with it, but somebody prompted you to come up with it. Aaron, you get the gold star.
Well,
Aaron doesn't remember.
it's not, no.
Oh,
I mean,
Lord, you guys,
we
I
had-
cannot remember for you.
Yes, I remember, but
Okay.
I would say it was more than just, I mean, there was a
No,
lot
but
of good
it
reasons.
encouraged you to, so Vincenzo, if you go to somebody and you say, hey, we would really like to think about putting paid parking in downtown. We really think that's important. And the person says, you know what, until everybody's with you on that, until it's something that everybody wants,
That's right.
I'm not ready for it. So you guys said, okay, we're going to start getting the pulse of the people. We're going to be
Yes.
educating the people.
Yes.
We're going to
So
check
it's-
in. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Is it coming
it was
back to you now?
about trying to, well, push. We were
Take the
trying
pulse.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, take the pulse. There
Educate
we
and
go.
take the
Sheree?
pulse. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting you bring up that meeting because even then, the number one thing that people
Yes,
put down was homelessness.
I know.
And that was a few years ago now.
Yes. Pre-COVID.
And I would, it could be valuable to get input again, not just to say, what is your most important issue now? Because I think
Mhm.
it's probably even more so homelessness, but to ask for feedback, because we have done a lot. And by we, I mean the URAU, Cherie, and Urban
I'm
Development.
nothing without you.
Well, no, but, and Rebecca, I mean, like all staff and some of the things we're talking about, allocating funds for security, trash enclosures, all these things, we have made it a priority. But I would like to hear feedback from people and say, is it working? Has there been a benefit to these? Or are the strategies that we're taking, are they the right strategies? Or, I think one of those meetings would be good. It seems like it should be at least a few months from now. I mean, again, as the dust settles on so many things right now. But yeah, it is interesting you bring that up, because I think hearing again from folks, because I think we have tried to address homelessness, but I'm not sure we're doing it the way that people see as a benefit. Or are we making things worse? Are we? Yeah, I'd be interested to hear from folks.
Well, a big piece of what you guys did in that meeting was nobody knows the other side of, I mean, they don't know all the projects and all the investments, infrastructure and, water, putting in what's below the streetscape, the millions of dollars into maintaining a parkade or into projects that bring housing units and new construction. It's not just the, each of the budgets that you control provide different benefits. And we could always just do a survey and get that information too, without having to have a meeting. We could just survey people. I think what the environment that we're in is that everybody's just going to say nothing's working, because I'm going to go back to you, Vincenzo. It feels like you're going in a circle. The cleaning's not enough. It gets cleaned and 5 seconds later it's dirty. So depending on if you saw it clean or if you saw it dirty, you're not happy. And I would hate to have it just be so negative, because we're already trying to hold each other up and stop using the word COVID. We want to, that's going to be my new thing. I don't want to use that word. Try to find the light, and depending on what you ask, it's just going to open up a floodgate when we all know it. We all know it. It costs money. And it's more than what one person or one group can do. That's the problem. It's going to take a lot of people working together. So, but a survey on some of the stuff, or an education moment again, I like that. I'm all about the education. And there isn't anything, Aaron, that says that we can't invite a property owner to our meeting one by one, or a business to our meeting one by one, and ask them these questions. Do it on a more intimate basis versus a big thing where it can be intimidating. We can just make that a goal. Each meeting we invite a couple of people to come and just add to our agenda, community, give them a couple of questions to help them come in prepared. And we can do it that way. We've got lots of options. It's up to you guys to think about, what you think, what you would like, how best you would feel about gathering that data.
Is it something, Cherie, that can there be like instead of it being the last thing of this agenda, can it be something that's at the top of the agenda maybe next time or whenever we're done with budget, whatever, so that it's like a day of just brainstorming, deciding what we want to do, streamlining, like figuring out a path of how and when and where. Does that make sense? And who?
Yes, we can have that as your only, if there's an action item, that always comes first, because we have to
Right.
make sure while we have a quorum, we get the action item done.
Right.
But after that, you can just designate a meeting for that purpose. Just
Right.
your own work session, your own brainstorming, you call it whatever
Right.
you want. So you get through the first stuff in 7 minutes and you have the rest of the time to talk about whatever.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. I think it would be worthwhile because there's a lot that we're just talking about and a lot of ideas, and it can't just be done right now, because it's the end of the meeting.
So to help me, I'm going to try to get Counselor Stapleton to come to the June meeting. So do you want her to be the only kind of prescribed thing, and then you want the rest of the meeting open discussion? What's everybody thinking? I hate where I can't see everybody's face. Just know that. I can see 4.
I say yes.
I'd say generally it'd be okay if there was a
Linda,
couple other
Can you
smaller
get
items,
a
but
sense of that?
So I've only heard the 2 voices. I'm looking at, let's see, I'm not seeing everybody else. I think that if you feel that just having her would be helpful for her and for our board, that would be fine. Does anybody want to have someone else with her? I think not hearing anything. So why don't we go ahead and just ask Stapleton for June?
Yeah, and again, I don't know if she's available. So this is
Right.
what I'll do. I'll ask Stapleton. If Stapleton's not available, I'll then, do you want me to go to city manager or Gretchen?
I think
City
that would be
manager?
good.
Okay, so I have Stapleton as 1, city manager is 2, then Arches is 3, Jimmy Jones.
Yeah, that'd be good, I think.
Okay, I ought to be able to get one of those.
would the city manager be the person to talk to about the RFP, RFQ of the UGM site, or would that be Kristen?
As
I would
far
like
as
to
which way
I
we're
mean-
gonna go? Or the timing of it?
timing, all of it. I mean, I think everyone on this board is very concerned and surprised by the about face and the direction of that project.
So that would not be Kristen or city manager. That would be you going to council
Okay,
and
that's
saying-
council directing staff to
Right, because,
delay the RFP coming out.
right, I think
Okay.
now that you know that that's something that's being discussed, you need to let them know that if a decision's made to maintain the UGM existing, you want a defined date for when that use is through.
Okay.
Because Kristen's
Thanks.
not
Then
going to
we
be able to
We
answer
need the
that.
counselor here as soon as possible.
That's why I'm looking at the counselor first, because then that's, as a group, you can state that at that time.
Okay. And then from there, after, if she's able to come and we speak with her, then could we as a board compose a letter for all city council? Would that be the direction we'd take? Asking,
We could do that anytime, right?
okay,
It's a little late now in today's meeting, but
unless Cherie can compose a letter and send it out to us.
Would it be, Cherie, what do you think of Linda's idea? I think it seems like it'd be good to voice our concern and not,
wait for
hold
another
it
meeting.
in.
Yeah.
I think you are safe. And I think it would be a great question to ask her.
Okay.
So she understands, I mean, you have a conversation about that site, what your vision and goals were for it. You queue up that you understand it could, because she's one of them that are discussing maintaining it as a shelter. And that obviously, your recommendation would be that not be open-ended, that there be a date on it. And then just say, would it be most helpful for you if we as a board do a letter?
Okay.
For you, it won't just be you, it'll be us, going to the rest of the counselors.
All right. That actually sounds good if you think that waiting a month is okay.
I don't think anything's gonna, I think it'll be fine.
Okay. Does that sound okay for you, Aaron?
Yes.
Other board members, do you feel that that's appropriate direction we should take? I'm listening.
Yeah. Hey, this is Jordan. The one thing I would throw in there on this for our lineup of speakers and progressing forward, I think hearing again from Gretchen Bennett, given everything that's happening right now, hearing from her in the next month or two on the status of current vacating the park, where they're going to go, I think getting her perspective on that sooner than later would be probably very valuable for our thought process and for letter composition in tandem with speaking with a counselor. My other, and I suppose, final comment on this is that for the lineup of speakers or guests that we've talked about, I think it would be wise if we broke up each of these groups. We were talking about UGM and Arches and City Council, et cetera. If we could break them up and hear from the public or business community or business people who may not be bound by the constraints of public employment or political bias, whatever it may be, left or right, to hear from the business owners or the property owners or the neighbors or people in the community who may have or be able to or want to voice concern one way or the other to relevant it, just so that we're not leaning towards one side, that we've kind of got a fair and balanced, I'm sorry I said that, so that we've got somewhat of a neutral listening point platform, I suppose. My 2 cents.
I would just add that I think if they're going to use the UGM as a temporary housing facility, it should have an interim use, or it should just be an interim use with a date at the end. Because could there be a stigma if we put out the RFP and it's still being used that way? Could that derail some people from being interested in pursuing the development, as opposed to if we took it down? There's that. And the other thing I was going to add, in light of everything we've talked about today, is that in light of Rudy's posting their video on Facebook documenting all the crimes that have been going on, Coin6 is actually coming out with a big story on it tonight at 6 o'clock. So that'll probably magnify the issues that's been going on even more. So, but yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I will just add that, Cherie, for your imaginary whiteboard, that there would just be continued dialogue about how are we incentivizing and encouraging economic development. You do a fantastic job of that. The message this morning about the business assistance operational cost grant that's out there. We've been sharing that with customers and tenants today and already getting interest in that. But any other things that we can do to support you in that mission and make sure that Salem is looked at as a place that people want to come and open businesses and improve our areas, that the path is clear and that this is a great reputation for that. Another would be the advocacy side. What can we be doing to support downtown? So the information about UGM and all this is great, and just continuing that dialogue. If there's anything that we can do together, it sounds like we really should come together to frame up a letter. Maybe we show up in person as a group, whatever it takes to say that, hey, this is not in line with what we need for our downtown. There's this could be a big problem, but we have an opportunity to speak to it. How do we unite and bring our voice together to fight for downtown? Because I think Linda said it beautifully, that this is a shared situation. This is a city situation, not downtown. So just like when we said, hey, let's not try to do a wayfinding station in downtown, let's just figure out how to work together and then get people the resources that they need. I think it's helpful to just see how we can pool our resources and advocate for downtown. I mean, this is where our businesses, homes, there's a lot here riding on taking care of these issues. And then being that mouthpiece and doing the informational meetings like Vinny and Aaron organized in the beginning with Cherie, that was fantastic. And I'd be happy to help in any way that I can and be a mouthpiece to a lot of the property owners and tenants downtown. But I think just having those reminders out there, I like where Rebecca was going on the informational side of how urban renewal works, what the options are, and then taking it to that next step of, how do we just make sure we support you in any way that we can to make that a simple process when people get into the detail side. So as people are applying for a grant or a loan, what is that going to look like, Cherie, after, not saying that you're retiring, but whenever you retire, that you've been an expert on the loan side. I see that calculator come out, and I know who you are. I know your core. I know that loan side. And so but that's been such a great thing. And we've really benefited from it. So how do we continue that on and give people options to invest in our downtown and continue to expand it, grow it, or just some, as Tyson said, my 2 cents.
Well, thanks, Brad. And I just, hearing Jordan talk made me think why I was thinking about the list, because I think to stay balanced, he used the word neutral. It's not that we can't have our plans and our goals, but I think that having the voice of others, having, businesses tell us what they think, property owners tell us what they think, we know what we think. I think then people will be more respectful because we value what other people say. It doesn't mean that it changes anything that you guys want as a focus, but you would have at least had that in your wheelhouse to inform what you're doing. So I see, Jordan, that as a piece of that. I understand that you don't want to, say yes or no, but that you want to make sure that we are respectful to the rest of the story before some hard position on something. And this board's always been very good about bringing people in and getting, and it could be that we do brown bag, small groups to get that message, not a big thing. There's lots of ways to get feedback from other people as we're navigating through creating a message and working together. I can see that happening. And yes, Brad, thank you. I know I won't be here forever. It's the white hair, Linda. See, I told you it's the white hair.
No, it's not. So we're running over a little bit of time. Is there anything else that we need to discuss before we kind of finalize it sounds like you've kind of got our list going, know what we're wanting. Appreciate everybody's comments. I think we all know that this is not easy, and educating ourselves and even the business owners and property owners, I think is such a great way. I'm thinking that if Stapleton comes June, maybe we can explain to her that we're wanting to reach out to business and property owners and hear their concerns, and would then maybe like to have her back again so we can tell her about it. That way that gives her support too for going to her council meetings. But that's just a last thought. Anybody have any, do we want to go into what's happening in Salem, or should we just close up?
Oh, no, I'll come back with some fun stuff next month.
Yay, fun stuff. Again, any last comments before I adjourn the meeting? Rebecca and Cherie, can I have you stay on just for a minute? I have a specific question that I'd like to ask you, long as I have you. Okay, then